Studio Bind is cooking. Studio Bind is absolutely cooking when it comes to Flower and Asura, a new series in the winter 2025 anime season. Honestly, coming into the season, this is my most anticipated new show of the season. Everything around it seems to be clicking for me. Studio Bind's working on it. I love everything that comes out of Studio Bind, Mushoku Tensei, Onimai. But yes, when I found out the original creator of the story was the creator behind Sound Euphonium, I'm like, holy crap. I love Sound Euphonium, so obviously I'm going to love this show, right? But yeah, truth be told, when I came into the first episode, I'm assuming, okay, it's going to be a good introduction, slice of life episode. Probably not going to blow it out of the water. Nope. First episode was absolutely incredible. Everything on point. The visual design, the characters themselves, a really quick little kind of introduction into a struggle of characters having. Everything around it itself being portrayed just so beautifully. The poems themselves, the things that are being recited, sort of telling a story at the same time. Everything's clicking. But yeah, for those that don't know what Flower and Asura is, it opens up with a girl named Mizuki. And Mizuki is on this one island where she ends up bumping into this girl named Hana, who is currently reading a story to a bunch of kids. And she loves how she's telling the story. The way that she kind of portrays the characters, gets the emotion in there. And of course, the kids themselves are entertained by it. But yeah, very quickly, this Mizuki, kind of catches her off to the side and says, hey, I heard that you're going to our new school. You're going to be a first year coming there. I have a club there. It's a broadcasting club. I would love you to join our club. It seems like you're really good at telling stories. And Hana really quickly kind of brushes off like, no, I'm not really that good. I can't do clubs anyways because I still have to catch the ferry to go back to the island where my home is at. So I can't even have clubs. But yeah, I can't do that. Well, Mizuki doesn't want to give up. Mizuki does want to give up because, yeah, she's all about her club. She thinks that her storytelling's fantastic. And plus, she wants her to join because they want to do these competitions, which, yes, that was surprising to Hana too, including myself, that apparently there is competitions for broadcast clubs. But yeah, she wants her to join the club, so she's not going to give up. Well, cut forward, Hana ends up joining the school, going to the entrance ceremony. At some point, Mizuki hands her one of her flyers, trying to get her to join again. And then at some point during the first day, Mizuki does a broadcast for all the new students. During the broadcast, she recites one of these stories, and yes, it seems like the story itself has a lot to do with about a person that is kind of stuck in one place, unable to move forward or move back, calling out to their father to give them strength and urge them to kind of move forward, that kind of stuff. And yeah, it really quickly catches Hana's attention. It's something that she's swept up into, the story that she's telling. Well, after school, Hana ends up, getting on the ferry to go back home for the weekend, and yes, Mizuki ends up sneaking on board, and actually overhears Hana reciting a story, but not putting much emotion into it. And she kind of asks Hana why she goes out of her way to sort of, limit herself. Why don't you always kind of portray the stories correctly? Why don't you want to do this, do reciting for this club? These things that it seems like you want to do, things that it seems like you enjoy doing, but you're limiting yourself. Well, yeah, that's when Hana, points out the fact that, hey, this is the last ferry for the weekend, and you're kind of stuck here, but you can stay at my place. At which point, it kind of gives a sense that it seems like Hana likes Mizuki being there. And yes, at some point, Mizuki ends up getting caught by the mother off to the side, where the mother does admit that, yes, it does seem like Hana has a problem with asking for things. Because she's the only girl her age on this island, it seems like all the other kids, being younger than her, always look up to her like a big sister. So she's always gone out of her way to sort of not ask for things, not to be selfish. And yes, that seems to have, drilled it into her head that she can't ask for things for herself. She wants to be a good role model, basically. We'll cut forward the next morning. Mizuki notices that Hana is not in the room. And yes, she goes out to look for her, where she finds her on the shoreline where she is reciting a poem. And it seems like this poem has a lot to do with the idea of somebody being kind of stuck and restrained down, and additionally having to pander to things, while at the same time wanting to scream out for themselves, to show their own inner self. And yes, after she beautifully portrays this and Mizuki's kind of swept up into the actual acting that she's doing, she says, that's it. You're literally going to be joining the club. Like, it's not going to end. I am going to make sure that you join the club. Which again, Hana does reject it once again. But then Mizuki kind of presses on her, look, tell me what you really want. Tell me what you really want. It seems like you really, really enjoy doing this. So much so that you came out here and you're standing in the rain and you're shouting at the top of your lungs so beautifully. You want to do this, right? Tell me what you really want to do and I will make it happen. To which point, Hana finally kind of expresses, yes, I want to join the club. They get back to the house and yes, very immediately the mother's like completely accepting of it. Again, this is something the mother and acknowledge that this girl does not want to ask for things. And finally, she's able to say what she wants to say. Yes, have fun. I want you to be happy. And yes, we find out that Mizuki apparently, before they even arrived on the island, had already talked to the fairy guy about actually getting the scheduling moved just so Hana can go to this. And the guy's like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Like, I love how happy you make my niece. I would love to be able to do that for you. And then we close out the episode with Hana going to the club itself, which it seems like a couple people don't look like they're too happy to see her. But yeah, it seems like Mizuki and somebody else was really happy to see her and welcome her in. And that's where it kind of ends the first episode. This is our introduction to the story itself. Like I said before, absolutely beautiful show. Like, this isn't like Ufotable levels, but like this is like high caliber visuals. I would put this in the realm of like an 8 out of 10. Like, there's very few things that I can critique about the show. The shading is beautiful. The hair itself, the character designs are fantastic. Everything is just on point visually for the show itself. I just think it's an absolutely beautiful show. And yes, a lot of the portrayal of the reciting they're doing, which again is storytelling, which a lot of focus is put into sort of how people get swept up in the poem itself or the story itself. Again, with the idea of Hana being in the classroom and Mizuki is doing the broadcast, it's a lot to do with the idea of being stuck in one place. And so what it portrays is having Hana stuck on this railway, and she can't step forward on the railway itself. She keeps kind of hesitating. At the same time, Mizuki's walking forward as she's reciting it, talking about getting this strength and this urge to push and move forward. So she's able to kind of walk past her. And yes, that's something that happens later on with Hana when she's doing that one poem, and it kind of shows her being restrained down, and you can kind of see that as being sort of parallel to her own story. She's being restrained. She's having to, give in to the desires of other people, and she wants to do her own thing. And then you see her kind of shatter, come back together, and then yes, at some point just scream at the top of her lungs. It was just so great. It is so great to kind of see the characters get swept up in that. And yeah, the music. My gosh, I had to immediately after watching the episode go look up the actual musician that was working on this, because especially Hana doing the reciting later on, like the music itself was so beautiful. And yes, they worked on Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night, Surene, Fruits Basket, Gundam. This guy is just absolutely incredible. And what they did with that little piece, especially there, was so beautiful. Again, everything visually and presentation-wise and directing and everything is just so freaking on spot. So, yeah, but the story itself, like I said, I do like so far this setup. It was a good little setup here. Mizuki, who's, again, seems like somebody that has a passion for something and trying to strive towards something, seems some sort of potential in Hana, just kind of pulling her into their club. She seems fantastic so far. I like her character. It seems like she's really kind of driven to try to pull Hana out of something. Obviously sees some potential in there and trying to help her. And yeah, she seems very crafty. She's very much so the opposite of Hana in the idea that she goes for things. Whereas Hana never asks for things, Mizuki is more used to being able to go for things. So it's kind of fitting later on where she's telling Hana, hey, tell me what you want to do and I'll make it happen. Because I know that you're afraid of doing this stuff. I'm obviously seeing that hesitation that you have. I'll do it for you. It's as simple as asking this guy. And I kind of had that feeling early on when she first tells her, look, I'm going to miss the ferry. And I'm like, just ask him to change the schedule. Ask him if it'd be okay to change the schedule. It's going to be that simple. And that, again, that is to Hana's character, is that she's unable to do something that simple because she's afraid to ask for things. She doesn't want to look like she's needy. She's trying to set this example for the other kids. And so, yes, with Mizuki, it's like, yeah, I just asked him and he said, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, we all love Hana here. Again, this is this girl that's, doing something that's so great for our children, and our children just love her. Why wouldn't they want to help her? Mizuki's the one that's able to kind of do those simple things that Hana can't do. And yes, Hana's character so far, love her. She is so freaking cute. I just loved, I got a huge kick out of the fact that like early on you see her and she's doing the reciting, the kids love it, and she goes to walk away, and even when the parents said something effective, she's a really good girl. And she had like a little bit of a pause there, and it kind of stood out to me. And I kind of assumed that was that aspect of her not really thinking that she's that special. Again, this is a girl who a long time ago seen this reciting, and she just wanted to try it. And it seems like all the parents were like, oh yeah, we'll give you a little setup here so you can read to the children. They did that for her. But she never thought that she was special. She just figured that she's doing something and not really that good at it. And right there, it seems to have that little pause there. But I love how Mizuki catches her later, and she's like, holy crap, that was really good. And she's like, huh. So what's your name? Hana? Oh, that's a beautiful name. Huh. Like, she has like this really kind of like zero energy response to everything. I just absolutely get a kick out of. But yeah, I really love her character. Again, she's not too much in the realms of like too much, which I feel like a character like this can be too much. Because again, we're obviously getting polar opposites here of Mizuki being very Genki, outgoing, and not afraid to ask for things. Whereas Hana's very much so a person of, I need to stay in my place. I have to set this example. And yes, I don't feel that I'm that good. I'm not important. I'm not special. And yes, I have this role that I'm trying to fulfill that at some point I realize I don't have to restrict myself for. And you really get a sense of that because, like, this girl's, like, super happy just to have somebody that's not, younger than her actually staying over and sleeping over at her house. Like, this girl's, like, smiling at the dinner table. She's just happy, like, oh, wow, finally, somebody that's not younger than me, that's hanging out with me. She's super happy to have an actual friend, not somebody that's looking up to her all the time. A big sister. I really do think that, like, a lot of their chemistry is going to be around the idea of Mizuki being like a big sis. She's going to take care of it all, which it did kind of have me fearful early on when you have her saying something to the effect of, tell me what you want and I'll make it happen. It might possibly get into the realms of her being a little bit too reliant on Mizuki and unable to kind of move on her own, which that would be kind of an interesting story beat to get into. Which, yes, I can totally see this writer with their caliber being able to kind of get that stuff really well. But I feel like a character like this can be a bit too much where they kind of hold themselves for too long and it starts to get frustrating. Like, okay, you really don't have to take it that seriously. And I think it's kind of nice that we at least get an ability to ask for things kind of broken from the very beginning. I'm sure Hana's still going to have a lot of issues with self-confidence going forward. I think there's probably still going to be a lot of fears of kind of stepping out there and accepting that she's doing a good job. I think a lot of the storytelling is probably going to revolve around that. I don't think it's going to play too heavily on the idea of stage fright. It could, but I don't think it's going to have too much stage fright because she's done it for so long. She's been doing a lot of storytelling to the kids and the parents being right there and a lot of people responding to what she's doing. So I don't think she's going to have an issue with stage fright, but there could be quite a bit here to do with her not feeling that she's adequate, that she's not that good. I've always been telling these stories to kids, and the parents were placating to it. It could go that direction. But again, so far, the two characters they've introduced, pretty solid. I think a lot of my fears that I have going into the following episodes is going to be, okay, who are these other characters? Because yes, that first impression of her opening that door and you get stink eyes from people. It's like, I think the other one was Ryoko, and Mizuki seems perfectly fine, obviously, because she wanted to join. But yeah, all the other characters, we have one guy that looks like he's completely just out of it. you got stink eyes from this one girl. You got this other guy there. Hopefully the other characters in the club itself are a solid group, especially since it seems like they're all brought together by Mizuki. You assume that a lot of them are going to be following her. I assume based on the PV and sort of a little bit they're doing here, it could get into a little bit in the realms of Yuri, which yes, for those that are not aware, that have never watched Euphonium, this writer is very, very much so likes Yuri baiting. Likes to have characters that seem like they are going to end up dating at some point, and that's not really the direction the story goes. So I'm pretty much assuming that will be the case for this one as well. You're probably going to have a lot of other characters that are going to be interested in Mizuki, and there's probably going to be a little bit of a dynamic with Mizuki and Hana where there's a romance blossoming that never happens. Because Euphonium was so like that. Like, these girls were so like, thighs were next to each other and it felt like they were about to kiss every 2 seconds, and it never happens. So I'm assuming there's going to be a little bit of Yuri baiting in here as well, which I'm perfectly fine with. I think Euphonium was perfectly fine. Again, Euphonium is literally up there as one of my favorite shows. It was just a beautiful series. But yeah, I guess there is the other elephant in the room here with the studio itself being Bind. I am perfectly fine with that. I know there's a subset of people that think that anytime that Bind does anything that's not related to Mushoku Tensei, it means the Mushoku Tensei franchise itself is going to be damaged by it. I don't subscribe to that, and that's mainly because I understand how production works, and I understand that this has nothing to do with Mushoku Tensei. Basically, Mushoku Tensei has its own budget, it has its own animators, it has its own scheduling. It's nothing to do with them doing something else. It's not that you have like 5 people in the studio, and because Flower and Asura is here, they're not doing Mushoku Tensei. No, Mushoku Tensei has its own team, it has its own directors, it has everything itself scheduled to it. Basically, whether Flower and Asura exist or not, if Mushoku Tensei is scheduled and planned and produced and yes, funded in a way that will be disaster, it's going to be a disaster. But no matter what I say, I think just like with Onimai, it's going to end up being the situation where if anything hiccups in Mushoku Tensei, people are going to blame Flower and Asura because they don't understand how anime is actually produced. They don't understand that every single thing has its own teams, its own animators. And yes, with Onimai, they had a lot of outsourced people that did incredible jobs with Onimai that weren't available for Mushoku Tensei. They have their own jobs and they went on to other things. But those people aside, I'm still going to enjoy Flower and Asura. I think it looks incredible, and I'm super happy about that, and I cannot wait for more. This first episode was just incredible. It exceeded my expectations, and I cannot wait for more. So anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below, comment, let me know if you think of the series, if we're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. I'll be doing first impressions of all the shows of the coming season, so definitely stick around. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take care.